My husband's family tried to take over our vacation home. When I said no, they turned the whole family against us. I've been married to my husband Marin 35M for 7 years. Now we met in college during a hackathon event where we were paired up to work on a project despite our initial clash of ideas. We ended up creating an impressive app that won US first place. That victory sparked not just a successful partnership, but also a romance that blossomed into marriage a few years later. Both Martin and I worked in the tech industry. I started as an ex-designer and gradually transitioned into interior design, combining my love for technology and aesthetics. Martin, on the other hand, climbed the ranks in software development and is now a project manager at a well-known tech firm. Our careers have been challenging, but rewarding, allowing us to build a comfortable life together. Last year, we finally achieved a long-time goal of mine, buying a beautiful vacation home in the mountains. It's a cozy 3-bedroom cabin with stunning views of pine-covered slopes and a crystal-clear lake. I fell in love with it, instantly reminiscing about the summers I spent at my grandparents' lakeside cottage. As a child, those memories of peaceful mornings and starry nights were what inspired me to look for our own retreat. The cabin needed some work. When we bought it, the previous owners had left it in a state of mild disrepair, peeling wallpaper, outdated fixtures, and a kitchen straight out of the 1970s. But where others saw problems, I saw potential. As an interior designer, this project has been my passion for the past few months. I've poured my heart and soul, not to mention a significant chunk of our savings, into making it perfect. I've spent countless weekends at the cabin, carefully selecting every paint color, light fixture, and piece of furniture. I've mixed modern elements with rustic charm, creating a space that feels both luxurious and cozy. The renovation has been exhausting but exhilarating. Every time I step back and look at my progress, I feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. Martin has been supportive of my project, even though he hasn't been able to be there as much due to his work commitments. He trusts my vision, has given me free rein to make the cabin our perfect getaway. We've talked excitedly about future vacations, imagining winters spent by the fireplace and summers kayaking on the lake. Here's where the problem starts. My in-laws, Bob 68M and Linda 65F, recently visited us for our anniversary dinner. During the visit, they noticed the photos of the cabin renovation I had been sharing on social media. They were immediately captivated by the beautiful scenery and the cozy interior I had created. At first, their interest seemed harmless. They asked questions about the area, the size of the property, and my design choices. I was happy to share, proud of what I had accomplished. But then, as we were having dessert, they dropped a bombshell. They want to move into the cabin permanently. I was shocked into silence. This cabin was supposed to be our getaway, a place for Martin and me to relax and disconnect from our busy lives. It was never intended to be a permanent residence, let alone for my in-laws. Martin, however, didn't seem as surprised or concerned. He actually seemed open to the idea, arguing that since the cabin has 3 bedrooms, there's plenty of space for all of us. What Martin doesn't understand is that I bought this cabin as both an investment and a personal retreat. I had plans to rent it out when we're not using it, which would help offset the cost of the mortgage and renovations. This would be impossible with his parents living there full-time. Moreover, the idea of sharing our vacation home with anyone, even family, feels like an invasion of the private space I've worked so hard to create. To complicate matters further, Martin's younger brother, Tom 30M, who was also at the dinner, chimed in saying he'd love to join his parents in the mountains. Tom has a history of financial troubles and job hopping that dates back to his college days. He dropped out of college twice before finally getting a degree in communications, but he struggled to find stable employment since Tom has always been the family's problem child. While Martin was focused and driven, Tom was more interested in partying, living in the moment. This neighborhood much sooner than we had planned. While I'm grateful for their help, I don't think it entitles them to our vacation property. The gift was for our primary residence, not a blank check for all our future properties. The situation has created a rift between Martin and me. We've been arguing more frequently, with Martin insisting that I'm being unreasonable and ungrateful. I feel like I'm being painted as the bad guy for not wanting to give up our dream cabin. The stress is starting to affect other areas of our life, including our work performance and social relationships. To make matters worse, Bob and Linda have started telling extended family members about their upcoming move to the mountains. At a recent family barbecue, Martin's aunt congratulated me on doing such a wonderful thing for Bob and Linda. I was blindsided and didn't know how to respond without causing a scene. I feel cornered and don't know how to handle this without causing a family feud. On one hand, I understand Martin's desire to help his parents. Bob and Linda have always been kind to me, and I do care about them. They're getting older, and the idea of a peaceful mountain retirement probably seems idyllic to them. On the other hand, this cabin represents years of hard work and saving for Martin and me. It's not just a property, it's a dream we've built together. The thought of giving it up or significantly altering our plans for it is heartbreaking. I'm also concerned about the precedent this would set if we give into this demand. What's next? Will we be expected to support Tom indefinitely? Will every major decision in our lives be subject to family approval? I love my in-laws, but I also value my independence and the plans I had for this property. I've always believed that maintaining some separation between our nuclear family and our extended family is healthy. This situation feels like it's blurring those lines in a way that makes me uncomfortable. I'm torn between standing my ground and keeping the peace. I don't want to be the cause of family strife, but I also don't want to sacrifice my dreams and financial security. The stress of this situation is taking a toll on me. I've been having trouble sleeping, and I find myself dreading family gatherings. Martin and I have always been a team facing life's challenges together. This is the first time I felt like we're on opposite sides, and it's a terrible feeling. I want to find a solution that respects everyone's needs and feelings, but I'm at a loss for how to do that. Am I wrong for wanting to keep our vacation home to ourselves? How do I navigate this delicate situation without alienating my husband and his family? Is there a compromise that I'm not seeing? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update. When it's been a month since my original post and a lot has happened, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your comments really helped me gain perspective on the situation and gave me the courage to address it head-on. After much consideration, I decided to have an honest conversation with Martin about my feelings regarding the cabin. I chose a weekend when we were both free from work commitments and suggested we go for a long walk in the park near our house. Being in a neutral, relaxing environment helped set the tone for our discussion. During our walk, I opened up to Martin about how much this project meant to me. I shared my childhood memories of vacations at my grandparents' cottage and how those experiences shaped my dream of having our own retreat. I explained how I envisioned our future with this property, weekend getaways, holiday celebrations, and maybe even a place for our future children to create their own summer memories. I also expressed my concerns about his parents and Tom moving in permanently. I pointed out that having them there full-time would change the dynamic of our vacations and limit our ability to rent out the property. I reminded Martin of our financial goals and how the rental income was part of our long-term plan. To my surprise, Martin was more understanding than I expected. He admitted that he got caught up in the idea of helping his family without fully considering the implications for our relationship. In our plans, he shared that he'd been feeling guilty about his success compared to Tom's struggles and saw the cabin as a way to even things out in the family. We talked for hours, delving into our feelings about family obligations, financial responsibilities, and our vision for our future together. By the end of our conversation, we agreed to present a united front to his family. Martin acknowledged that he should have discussed the idea with me before entertaining it with his family, and he apologized for putting me in such an awkward position with our own relationship on steadier ground. We invited Bob, Linda, and Tom over for dinner to discuss the situation. I spent the day preparing a nice meal, hoping that a comfortable atmosphere would help ease the tension of the conversation to come after dinner. As we sat around the living room with coffee, I started the discussion. I began by expressing how much we value our relationship with them and how grateful we are for their support over the years. Then I explained our vision for the cabin, how we plan to use it as a vacation home and rent it out when we weren't there. I shared some of the financial projections showing how this property was an important part of our retirement strategy. Bob and Linda seemed to understand. Much to my relief, they admitted that they had gotten carried away with the idea of mountain living without fully considering the practicalities. Linda confessed that the idea had been more of a fantasy than a real plan, sparked by their recent struggles with the upkeep of their current home. Tom, however, was visibly upset. He accused us of being selfish and reminded us of all the times his parents had helped us. He brought up the down payment gift for our first house, arguing that we owed it to the family to share our success. The conversation quickly became heated, with Tom raising his voice and Martin trying to calm him down. Eventually, Tom stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. After Tom left, we had a more productive discussion with Bob and Linda. They apologized for the misunderstanding and for discussing their plans With the extended before talking to us, we agreed on a compromise. They could use the cabin for extended vacations a few times a year, but it would remain our property. They seemed genuinely excited about the prospect of regular mountain getaways without the responsibility of full-time residence. Everything seemed resolved, and Martin and I felt relieved. We spent the next week feeling like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders. We even started making plans for our first family vacation at the cabin, thinking about which weeks would work best for everyone. However, our relief was short-lived. About a week after our dinner, we received a call from Linda. Her voice was shaky as she told us that Tom had been bad-mouthing us to the entire extended family. Apparently, he had called several relatives, painting us as greedy and ungrateful. He claimed that we were denying his parents a comfortable retirement and that we owed them the cabin because of their previous financial help. This has created a rift in the family, with some relatives taking Tom's side and others supporting our decision. We've received several angry messages from cousins and aunts accusing us of being selfish and forgetting where we came from. Others have reached out to express their support, but the family is clearly divided. Martin is particularly hurt by his brother's actions. He feels torn between loyalty to us and his family. I can see the stress wearing on him. He's been quieter than usual and having trouble sleeping. He's even started to question whether we made the right decision, which has led to some tense moments between us. We're now facing not just the cabin issue, but a full-blown family crisis. The property that was supposed to bring us joy has become a source of stress and family strife. Martin and I are united in our decision, but we're unsure how to proceed without causing further damage to family relationships. We're considering taking a break from family gatherings until things cool down, but we're worried this might make the situation worse. We don't want to give the impression that we're choosing the cabin over family, but we also need some space to process everything that's happened. I feel guilty for being the catalyst of this family drama, even though I know I didn't do anything wrong. The cabin renovation that once brought me so much joy now fills me with a sense of dread. I find myself second-guessing every decision we've made, wondering if there was a way we could have avoided all this pain. How do we navigate this new development? Should we confront Tom about his behavior, or is it better to let things blow over? How can we repair relationships with family members who've turned against us without compromising our decision about the cabin? Any advice on handling family conflicts would be greatly appreciated. Update 2: It's been 2 months since my last update, and the situation has taken several unexpected turns. I apologize for the delay in updating, but things have been chaotic, to say the least. Shortly after my last post, we discovered that Tom had done more than just badmouth us to the family. We received an alert from our security system about unexpected activity at the cabin. At first, we thought it might be a false alarm, or maybe an animal had triggered the motion sensors. But when we checked the security camera footage, we were shocked to see Tom entering the cabin with a duffel bag. Martin and I immediately dropped everything and drove up to the cabin, unsure of what we find. The 3-hour drive was tense, with both of us cycling through emotions of anger, concern, and disbelief. When we arrived, we found Tom's car parked in the driveway. Confirming our fears, we entered the cabin to find Tom lounging on the couch, acting as if he had every right to be there. The scene that greeted us was worse than we could have imagined. In the week he had apparently been staying there, Tom had managed to cause significant damage to the property. The beautiful hardwood floors I had carefully restored were scratched and stained. Several pieces of furniture were broken, including an antique rocking chair that had belonged to my grandmother. The kitchen was a disaster, with dirty dishes piled high and food left to rot on the counters. But the worst was yet to come. Tom had apparently decided to do some renovations of his own. He had knocked down a portion of a wall, claiming he was trying to open up the space. This amateur demolition had not only ruined the aesthetics, but it also caused some plumbing issues, resulting in water damage to the floor and walls. Confronted with the evidence of his destructive behavior, Tom initially tried to justify his actions. He claimed that since we were being selfish with the cabin, he had a right to use it as he saw fit. He argued that his family should have free access to the property. When we pointed out that he had essentially broken in and vandalized our home, he became defensive and aggressive. The argument that ensued was ugly. Years of pent-up resentment and sibling rivalry came pouring out. Tom accused Martin of always being the golden child, to me of turning his brother against the family. Martin, usually the calm one, lost his temper and threatened to call the police. It was at this point that Tom's bravado crumbled. He broke down, admitting that he had lost his job again and had nowhere else to go. He said he felt like a failure compared to Martin and me, and the cabin had become a symbol of everything he couldn't achieve. While I felt a twinge of sympathy, it didn't excuse his actions. Martin and I stepped outside to discuss our options. We were both emotional and needed a moment to clear our heads despite the damage and violation of our trust. Martin felt conflicted about pressing charges against his brother. Family Loyal was warring with his anger and disappointment. After a long discussion, we decided to give Tom an ultimatum here. Could avoid legal consequences if he agreed to pay for the damages and seek professional help for his issues. We made it clear that this was his last chance. Any further incidents would result in legal action, family or not. To our surprise, it was Bob and Linda who stepped up at this point. When we called to inform them of the situation, they were horrified by Tom's actions. They drove up to the cabin, immediately arriving a few hours later. Seeing the damage firsthand, they were visibly shaken. In a moment that showed true parental love and responsibility, they offered to cover the cost of repairs. They also insisted that Tom move back in with them under strict conditions, including finding a job and attending therapy. It was clear that they realized they had been enabling Tom's behavior for too long and were finally ready to take a firmer stance. This incident seems to have been a wake-up call for the entire family. Many of those who had sided with Tom initially have now apologized to us after seeing the extent of his actions. The aunt, who had been one of our most vocal critics, called to express her regret, admitting that she had jumped to conclusions without knowing the full story. Martin and I have started the process of repairing the cabin, which is unfortunately going to delay our rental plans. The damage was extensive, and it's heartbreaking to see my hard work undone. We've had to hire professionals to fix the plumbing and structural issues, which has been a significant unexpected expense. The whole ordeal has been incredibly stressful, but it's brought Martin and me closer together. We've had long conversations about family dynamics, boundaries, and our future. We're more committed than ever to our plans for the cabin, and we're taking steps to increase security to prevent future incidents. We've installed a more sophisticated alarm system and changed all the locks. We've also decided to be more selective about who we share the cabin keys with, even among family members. It's a sad necessity, but one we feel is important to protect our investment and our peace of mind. Tom has moved back in with Bob and Linda. From what we've heard, he started seeing a therapist and is actively job hunting. It's early days, but there seems to be a glimmer of hope that he's finally taking steps to turn his life around. We're cautiously optimistic about the future, but we're also realistic. We know that rebuilding trust with Tom and some family members will take time. For now, we're focusing on repairing our property and our relationships one step at a time as we move forward. We're wondering how to balance maintaining boundaries with compassion for Tom's situation. Any advice on rebuilding family relationships after such a breach of trust would be greatly appreciated. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on this saga. The renovation of the cabin is finally complete. It took longer than expected and cost more than we had anticipated, but the result is even better than before. Martin and I decided to use this opportunity to make some upgrades we had been considering, turning a negative situation into a positive one. We've added a beautiful deck overlooking the lake and upgraded the kitchen appliances. In a way, this second renovation has allowed me to put my own stamp back on the place, erasing the bad memories of Tom's destruction. We've successfully enlisted the property for short-term rentals and have already had several bookings. The extra income is helping to offset the cost of the repairs, and we're getting great reviews from our guests. It feels good to share our special place with others who appreciate its beauty. As for family matters, things have slowly been improving. Tom has been sticking to the agreement we made. He's been seeing a therapist regularly and has managed to hold down a job for the past 4 months. It's an entry-level position at a local marketing firm, but it's a start. While our relationship with him is still strained, we can see he's making an effort to turn his life around. We've had a few brief civil conversations with Tom at family gatherings. There's still tension, but it's no longer openly hostile. Last month he approached us with an envelope containing a small amount of money, his first contribution towards repaying the damage he caused. It wasn't much, but the gesture meant a lot. Bob and Linda have been incredibly supportive throughout this process. They've respected our boundaries and have even started planning their own vacations instead of relying on the idea of moving into our cabin. We've hosted them for a week-long stay, and it was a pleasant experience for everyone. They seem to enjoy being guests rather than potential permanent residents. The extended family has largely moved Past the drama, with most people recognizing that Tom's actions were out of line, we've attended a few family gatherings. And while there's still some tension, it's noticeably lessened. Some relatives have even reached out to apologize for their initial reactions, admitting they spoke without knowing all. The facts Martin and I have grown from this experience. We've learned the importance of clear communication and setting boundaries, even with family. We've also realized the value of standing united in the face of external pressures. Our relationship feels stronger than ever. Having weathered this storm together, looking back, I'm proud of how we handled the situation. We stood our ground. Without completely alienating our family, we showed compassion to Tom while still holding him accountable for his actions. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I wondered if it was worth all the stress, but I believe we made the right choices as we move forward. We're excited about the future of our cabin. It's become not just a vacation home or an investment, but a symbol of our resilience as a couple. Every time we visit, we're reminded of the challenges we've overcome together. We're looking forward to making new, happier memories there.